Hey everybody, I'm Brian, this is David. We're with the City of Tallahassee Underground Utilities, and we're going to tell the story of how we are using Tableau on all levels of the organization. So just as a little bit of an intro, I went to college the first time in the early 90s. I met a girl. I went back to college to get a technical degree. We got married, started having a baby. I started working for the city of Tallahassee. And then about 2010, I started having more babies and started working with Tableau. My technical background is as a developer. In the real world, I do a lot of child herding and a lot of cooking. And then, data visualization comes in pretty strong for me now, too. And I can make my way around a database, and the small blue dot that didn't merit enough text, it wasn't big enough for the text in Tableau, was my management skills. I'm going to turn it over to David for a little while now, and he's going to talk about himself, and he's going to talk about our organization for a little bit.
Okay, well, I came a little different route. I started in the U.S. Marine Corps, and then after I got out, I had a career in theater. Not an actor. I would build things and run the crews and make sure the shows happened. Transitioned to the computers, and it's the same thing. I'd build things and make sure the shows happen. So in my theater world, I fell in love, so got married. Same thing, babies, got one on the way. Actually, that's a future baby, the second one. The city of Tallahassee and Tableau kind of were very close together. Now, I didn't come from a technical background. I came from a theater background. So when I started transitioning to this, I read a lot, and taught myself a lot of things. And one of the early books I read was Edward Tuff's Visual Display of Quantitative Information. I'm seeing some nods. And if you haven't read it, get it. The people that created Tableau have read it. And his big thing is chart junk. If you have pixels on the screen or ink on a page, it should convey information. If it doesn't, it's useless. So when I started using Tableau, I went, these people read the book. So I really, really enjoy it. I've had some nice successes where people have said, oh, your interfaces are so clean. Well, I read the book. And my skills, a lot of, more building things with wood and whatnot. So my technical skills are more in the .NET world. I'm the guy that people go to when they want SharePoint development where we're at. And fortunately, using Tableau about a year, and I've really ramped up my skills, so I went ahead and made that bubble big too. Okay, we are underground utilities, and we are actually an amalgamation of about 4 different utilities. We've got our water production and distribution, we've got wastewater collection and treatment, we've got natural gas, and stormwater. So we have many different customers and many different disparate needs of our organizations. We've got engineers of water, we've got engineers of gas, the gas engineers. We've got then the upper level management, all the way down to the guys that are going to dig holes in the ground to fix the broken sewer pipe. So we've got a lot of different users and a lot of different types of customers, and of course data. This is a picture of our city, and actually we have customers not just in the city but in surrounding counties even with some of our water and natural gas. The things we deal with physically, we have what we call linear assets. So we've got pipes in the ground. We've got what we call point assets. So we've got the valves and the fire hydrants, and we've got data about that. We also have vertical facilities. So we've got the lift stations to push stuff up over the hills and our pumps to pull water out of the ground. And so each one has maybe a little bit of data or a lot of data all compacted in one place. The GIS is our system of record, so we keep all of our line of business data is ultimately derived from, his main thing is GIS. And so, okay, that brings back to our data stores. What we have done is create a mobile work management system for our guys in the field, and since that's homegrown within our own organization, not the cities, but just underground utilities, we had access to the server, and we could create our own database. So we used MySQL, and that gave us very granular control. We can pop in, make views, whatever we need to do, we can do very quickly, quick turnaround for that. But we also have a lot of our data is coming out of our more legacy and citywide systems, such as PeopleSoft and HR. And those are in Oracle. They are housed downtown. They've got their own little staff maintaining it. So if somebody says, I want some data out, I can't go, oh, let's go pop a view in. I have to do everything in custom SQL outside of Tableau. Solved some interesting problems with that, and if you have any questions about getting something like that, please let us know. Also, one of the big things is with the treatment plant and also the water quality lab, they have a lot of systems that are proprietary. Now, that is in an Oracle database, but the table names are B1, okay, and column name C1. Okay, that really doesn't tell me anything. And they want data out of it. So I've written scripts to go mine data and come back and like, okay, I know I need that value for that date, and I find it here. Now I can write my custom SQL and get the data out for the data viz. And if you have any questions about writing scripts to write scripts, email me and I'll talk more about that. Also, then we do have Excel. Some of these are one-offs. I've got a spreadsheet. A lot of these are some custom jobs that are written to pull data out that people have been using for a while. I see, and they want to be able to see their data more. So we just marry in with the data export, and then we just pull it into Tableau for our data source. We also use Access, which is good and bad. Discuss that later. I'll rant about that if I'm not careful. Okay, so our organization, like I mentioned, we are 4 different utilities and some support staff. At the very top, we have our general manager, and he really just wants the satellite view, what's going right or what's going wrong. That's all he wants to know. And then now as you get a little closer, people want more of the operational details. And getting down lower, we've got the dispatchers who are worrying about their workloads. Then we've got some of the engineers that want more operational data or business process data. And then, of course, there's Brian, and I don't know if you can read the letters, but there's IT Drone, that's Brian, and IT Drone 2, that's me. And the base of the way it comes down is the general manager walks in and says, we want you to do that. We do that. Everything else either goes through our boss, but then on the other hand, the field guys come in our same office to get their computers worked on and say, oh, while we're here, could you do... So we're in the middle, we're getting a lot of demand. Okay, this is at the managerial level. They definitely want the really high level view. They want it fast, they want it simple, and they really don't want a lot of complexity. As far as, they don't want to know about the complexity. They just want the baby, they don't want all the labor. And they really want turnaround time on this. So, Brian, want to talk one of your first things?
So, one of the very first successful visualization that we built was based on survey data. And what happened was the general manager had a survey sent out to all the employees in the organization. He wanted to measure employee satisfaction and sentiment. So this is a screenshot of the actual survey. And kind of what we can see here is we've got a logical grouping of questions. So we'd have a set about the organization, about communication, about pay and salary. And then all of the answers were a Likert scale. And so, we did the survey. This was an open source survey tool called Lime Survey that we brought up on an Apache server. And it was great. We got the survey data. But then, of course, they wanted to know about the survey data and analyze it. And that became a little more problematic. So this was what came out of the box from Lime Survey when you wanted to look at the things. And it's, a bunch of pie charts, column names like A5, field summary for 1A. I highlighted over here just to demonstrate that if you wanted to look at 30 questions, you were scrolling all day long. It was just not a good mechanism by which to look at the entire organization. I thought about it for a while, and I said, okay, what can we do? So what we came up with was this heat map of survey responses across the organization. So across the top, what we can see is physical or logical location. So business process and solutions here. On the far left, that's where David and I work. Engineering, gas. And so Jackson Bluff, LBR. So what you can really see quite clearly is, domains of clear dissatisfaction or satisfaction within the organization. So both vertically and horizontally. So as far as career path, almost globally across the organization, it was felt that a lot of people didn't feel like they had options for moving up inside the organization. And that's, can kind of be common in a government organization. But as part of the strategic plan, when we looked at this data, they did implement a step program for the field guys so that there was like a mechanism by which you can get a promotion. But previously, you pretty much had utility service worker 1 within the underground utility. And then we kind of changed up. Now you can get utility service 1, 2, or 3. And similarly, at a physical location, you can see that, these are the guys that are reading meters or cleaning sewer mains, and they were, the most dissatisfied. And here you can see, the least satisfied domain versus, apparently the engineering guys really feel like their supervisors are technically competent. And that's, you want to see that. But it was this visualization that I generated and distributed to management, at which point they said, gee, could we look at data like this live? And I said, I don't know, buy me server, and maybe we can make it happen. So it was a little bit of a guerrilla operation to get server implemented. But the mechanism was by showing them something beautiful that I could do only statically and then say, well, make with the money. So subsequently to that, we did a survey of customer satisfaction, and Dave is going to talk about that for a little bit.
Okay, when our field guys go out and they actually interface with the customer, our mobile work management system will, as soon as they mark the ticket complete, it will email that customer a quick survey. It's like 5 questions. Are you happy with it? Was it clean? Was the guy polite? Real simple thing, once again, a Likert scale. But this has a different need because this is more real-time data. And this is something the managers look at constantly because customer service is really, really big with us right now. So we can see, we're getting a fair amount of response rate and a lot of positives, which is good. But we something goes really wrong. It does seem like it goes wrong pretty bad, pretty quickly. And a couple things that happen here, though. If something's going really well, the manager can go, click on this, hover on this guy, and can email, automatically just email somebody, here's the response, goes to the ticket, say, hey, good job, or hey, what happened here? Also, we can click and get into our mobile work management system and view the ticket details. And, okay, here's something really, red all the way across. What happened here? And Tallahassee Gas Department did not respond. The fire department had to come out. Well, okay, that tells me 2 things, basically, that we just paid a hefty fine to the feds because we have to respond within 30 minutes. And somebody in a different department that answered the phone didn't call us that there was a gas leak. So there are a couple of things going on here. Anthony Dillon, I know, does really good work here. So it just highlights, a great way to highlight problems, whether they're internal to us or even external to our organization. Okay, this is our...
You going to take this one, David?
Yeah, you go and take this one. This is your job.
We've moved down from the general manager, and now we're going to talk about some of the dispatchers. And so they've got a situation where they're managing a bunch of remote workers, and their needs for paying attention to their work vary a lot on an individual basis. So down here, what we can see is this is a screen capture I took of one of our sewer dispatchers. And what you can see is that, Corey and Jay, they've got 40 tickets attached to them, but Kevin Barrett only has 2. And that actually makes complete sense because Kevin Barrett does construction work, and those are jobs that legitimately will take a full day to do. And Corey and Jay are doing sewer preventive maintenance, and they should be able to do 18 or 20 of those a day. So the idea being that we really had to find ways to tailor specifically towards the individual user who was, whatever their responsibility set was for management time, we needed to find a solution to speak to them. So one of the things that we were asked to look at was linear feet of sewer pipe cleaned, with the idea being that they've got guys that go out in specific areas of town and put little robots into the sewer pipes to try to remove grease and roots. And for those guys, just a number of tickets completed isn't really a meaningful metric. What really is meaningful is how many linear feet did they make the robot travel down. So they came to us and they talked about it. So we modified the mobile work management component to start tracking linear feet. And then they said, gee, we need to be able to say, we want to see, how much of a percentage of the work they're doing. So you've got some options here. So if we kick up to 7 days, I think we get a little bit of cleaner view. Right, and so here we can see that Corey, good old Corey, he pretty much hit exactly what they expected. So they said, you know what, I want to see what happens if they do 20. If I expect them to hit 2,500 linear feet a day, who's going to hit that mark? But if we go to 2,800 linear feet a day, what we should see is the reference lines here indicating that will move out. So it's just a mechanism by which they can kind of keep track of the guys. And then the red dot kind of indicates how many times on a work order the user indicated it was like a heavy traffic area or an easement. Because, after we did this for a while, people were, it was kind of an iterative process, and they would come back and they say, look, I know that I only got X linear feet, but I was on Monroe Street, and I had to have one of my guys sitting there flagging traffic all day. So we kind of dual access, put the data in a dual access so that somebody could look at it and say, yeah, you know what? Callaway didn't really hit what we expect him to, but he did have 9 work orders out of his 18. Almost half his work orders were in conditions that could legitimately be expected to reduce his efficiency. And anecdotally, what I was told is that when we released this, the supervisor brought all the field guys in and showed them this, and there were several sets of eyeballs that got the size of dinner plates. And this dispatcher said, listen, if you don't want to know my name, make sure your value is always above this number. Nobody has any trouble. So, for this conference, I went ahead and I looked at some of the data. And what we can kind of see is over time, linear feet increased on a monthly basis, and the number of days worked decreased slightly. And similarly, the number of work orders increased. There was a lot going on there, so I won't take all the credit for that improvement, but I will definitely take some. And in a similar fashion, the general manager really wanted to start getting an idea of how long specific units of work were going to take, and with the idea of generating KPIs and benchmarks. So we manipulated the mobile work management system to start tracking start and end times. The user was responsible for entering in a value. And the 2 screenshots that you have here is the result of what happened when we first released that data but didn't really analyze it. And every time you see a red mark here, that's roughly an hour of space in which we did not get any data from the field guy saying they did work. And in some case, like here, you can see Cedric. People had gone to the point where they were just saying, you know what, click, click, I'm done. They would just click the count. They would click current time 2 times and say it took me 3 seconds to do a unit of work. But other times, I think there were legitimately guys taking 2-hour lunches every day. So we went to the operational guys, and we didn't expose this to the general manager. We went to the dispatchers and we said, look, we're looking at this data. We're going to tighten up our rules on the mobile application so that if you tell me it only took you 3 seconds to do a unit of work, we're going to ask you to confirm that. But really, it'd probably be best if you guys talk to your guys also. So our next generation of looking at that data is here. And this is clearly a much prettier picture. If you want, you can scan by planned or unplanned. And what I found was you wanted to default between about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but sometimes you would get somebody that was, legitimately get called in at 1 in the morning. So if you can change your time frame to all day, and what we can see here is that Jay did a bunch of work early in the morning. I don't know if there was some kind of emergency or if he misentered, but the idea was that we used the parameters to give people what they needed to see initially, with the chance to go back in time and see the whole day if there was good reason to think somebody might have had work at that time. And so let's say, geez, wonder what took Artie so long to do this work order. You can come out here, you say CNMWM, and it will direct them to the application, and you can look in, oh, it's a cave-in. Okay, presumably that would take that long for Artie to handle. That's actually probably a lot of work. So because we were, having some success in the technical realm, we got kind of roped into doing some work for the solid waste department. And they had a kind of different set of problems in that the commercial pickup guys would go out at 4 in the morning, and they would go up to pick up dumpsters. But, every once in a while there would be a problem accessing one of them. And what would happen is the business owner would come in at 9 or whatever, and he'd complain to somebody at solid waste, and then the guy has to figure out what route the guy was on, call the guy, see what was going on. So he said, you know what, these guys don't care about the 50 boxes that got picked up successfully last night. What they care about is the one that didn't get picked up successfully. So we kind of built this visualization to give that to them. And again, so you can come in, you can say, show me, my date range, and if there's an issue, you can say, oh, this one was blocked by a golf cart. The guys we had a tablet application, so say, you know what, I want to see this. You can come out, and attached a 90-degree offset picture to the work order, but right, sorry about that. But this is real data. But in any case, so now when the guy, the call center or the solid waste dispatch center gets this call, he can find out the details on why a container wasn't picked up without having to figure out who was on the route, calling the guy, maybe calling the guy at home because he already asleep because he started working in the middle of the morning. So we're going to move on to like the analyst level, and David's going to speak a little bit towards some of the things that he's done at the treatment plant. So go ahead.
Okay, well, here's a little view, and that's what a lot of these supervisors were looking at. They would get a PDF emailed them weekly or daily, and just show them what crews are doing what, and then someone would print it out and write lines through as they entered data into the mobile work management system. And if they lost a piece of paper, they go, oh, wait, I forgot what I did. So very static, and this is one of the things that we're trying to fix here. So let's keep that in mind. Just the static, this dead list is a good way to put it. So another thing we're dealing with is what was really cool maybe 10 years ago was they set up some Excelsius dashboards, and they are very labor intensive for the people who deal with them. They get a Excel spreadsheet spit out from one of their the databases, and then they have to manage it a little bit, and then they stick into a tool that makes this shockwave. They'll upload to a file server that shows up on our portal. So using Excelsius, I think was the tool. Also, the detail of this is not very good. If a manager wants to see what happens today, he has to go drill down. I think he can go see, might be able to see daily on this one. Or the charts might just show monthly and yearly. And this is actually not good because phosphorus is one of the ones that we are regulated on. So we need to know what happened. So if something goes over, we're notified about it because we, once again, pay a hefty fine if we don't. And that was what they had, and this is one of the ones I gave back to them. And actually this came up as an emergency. We need this right now. They apparently, phosphorus had gone over their daily limit of 5 milligrams per liter, and nobody noticed because they looked at the Excelsius and like, oh, it's just, oh yeah, the monthly chart shows we're fine. And they sent the data off to our Florida Department of Environmental Protection and got a phone call. Hey, why did you go over on, well, this trackpad isn't working. So on such day, and they went, what? Which, okay, if we go over, we can say, hey, we had a problem with this, and okay, we'll work with you. But the fact that we didn't know was very, very bad. So I got a phone call from the wastewater treatment plant manager, and right in the middle of World Cup. So I actually managed to had it on the big screen and code this thing out in about turn around. He got it in the afternoon. He got it. He gave him his first draft first thing in the morning. And I took what he had in Excelsius, scraped the data out, and started showing him, okay, here's your past 5, I always show like last 5 months, here's your trend. You're going to get some seasonal variability, but this is your general trend. I wanted to give him daily readings, and then if something goes over, it's really highlighted, width and color change. Now the thing with the phosphorus is that they're also regulated as far as what their weekly, their monthly, and their yearly average can be. So we can have a bunch of values that are not hitting the daily mark as far as the limits, but it'll push over the weekly average. So I want to make sure that they can see they're trending, which way they're trending on this. I really like spark lines, and this was actually my second iteration. I gave him one where I actually had a line graph of all the different weekly, monthly, and on top, and it was just getting too busy, and I really couldn't show the limits exceeding. So I put the 3 spark lines next to each other, and I did a fixed, basically I'll fix the width so that way fix the range on the vertical axis so they're all the same. And so you can actually see the limit level decreasing for each change in the time interval. So, and of course, the manager, who was kind of used to seeing Tableau and not Tableau, but the Excelsius, just not much. He's really, really appreciative of this. Actually, the first one I did, first one I did for him was total nitrogen, and I kind of used a lot of the same SQL, but I just pointed to a different data store to get my phosphorus. And when I first started doing the visits for him, the people working for him said, oh, Joe, he really likes the gauges. He wants to see an up arrow, down arrow. He doesn't want to see a lot of detail. And I didn't say anything, and I went and talked to him. He told me I want this one first, and we set the priority. And I went back, and let's see if I can actually channel my inner Joe. And I saw him, and he's like, I love this. I can see all of my data at the same time. So, I mean, seriously, he was very, very excited about it. It's fun working for people who love their job. Okay, and another one they have to do, they have to consume a lot of resources, or consume a lot of different chemicals to treat the water. Treat the wastewater so it's actually safe enough we can spray it on a field and grow hay, or sell to golf courses. And they wanted a way to track this. Well, once again, they had 3 different reports, and you had to page through to get the different time intervals. So I took all 3, put it on one, and I may have gone a little overboard with the spark lines, but part of my thought on this is that what they want to do is have a dashboard of dashboards. And I've sent a little mock-up to them, and what I was trying to do here was show him how you could look at something. There's not a lot of context as far as lines everywhere, but you can quickly see, oh, in the last 12 months, oh, I hit a spike of 1,254 gallons of bleach on one day, and real quick and see where they are. And so at this point, I was trying to get him used to seeing a lot of spark lines on the page, be able to go, I see what's going on. We're missing data on certain days, don't know what, but it's all his thing. Give him averages so he can see where things are going as far as that. In the similar vein, they use methanol, and that actually has a cost that's more expensive than the other chemicals. So they really track that, and it's really set at $1.49 a gallon. So the old business had, here's a chart for use, here's a chart for cost. Well, they're actually the same. So I dual access just so I could get the labels on either side. But thinking of what he needs to see, I didn't just show usage. I went ahead and showed his running sum of the fiscal year. So he can tell pretty quick, oh, I'm running at this much cost. I didn't expect that. He has asked just for me to show a trend line or some order projection. You'd like to see that on there to make this a little fancier. But very well received by the managers by really getting a lot of data pushed at them at once, and they're really coming on board with this. Okay, I mentioned the living list. I'm sorry, the dead list earlier. So this is really not a pretty viz here, but this is more like a living list. So we've got some things in our mobile work management system, and for example, here's one: is the facility accurate in our GIS system? And it's very important because in the middle of the night, it's raining. Something sewage is coming out from somewhere. Where is it? And we need the guys to know right where to dig and not go, oh, it's about here, and have to spend a lot of time looking for it. So we're really, really critical. We're going to get our GIS data up. So we've got the guys are pretty good about when they go out there, they're supposed to check to make sure is this where it says it is according to all the different points. And if it isn't, they can say no, and then they can kind of tell us why and the concerns, incorrect attributes. They can do a tie sheet attached. They can say it's spatially incorrect, or maybe it was relocated. And to make this actually more useful, and I don't want to do this live because this is production data. So I can pick one and click it, and then I can say, okay, well, the GIS folks, if they fixed everything, let's mark this as completed. Or mark it as no. If I click one of these links, our little hack here is we have a web server set up, so we're actually sending a query string in our URL to this. So we are actually able then to make Tableau useful for the supervisor type folks to be able to actually go close tickets or do things in tickets outside of our mobile work management system by using Tableau.
Yeah,
is there anything else I want to
add? The GIS analyst would say, I've made this change in the GIS, and the next time they came to that dashboard, that item would no longer be there. So it would shrink as they did their work, as opposed to how it used to be, where they got a report every Monday morning that they had to physically keep track of which changes they'd made.
I think this is back to you.
So, we kind of have this issue in the Northwest, and you can see it here. They said, I want a map of all our discolored or all of our water quality complaints. And gee, it sure looks like there's a little bit of a pattern there with the red. And we've got an idea what's going on there, but what they wanted to do is they wanted to have an ongoing process where they went out to the fire hydrants, and they put one of these things in the water main. It's called a pig. And you push it from one hydrant to the other, and hopefully you get a bunch of the gunk out of the main. And this is a map that was done of those mains. And what you can see is the engineering guys broke the problematic area into zones. And this was a big project. It was ongoing. It had 7 or 9 guys on it for almost a full year. And at the end of that, the general manager said, "Okay, are we helping?" And as I thought about it, it was kind of a difficult question to ask, because you have to say, is it helping on a zone-by-zone basis? And he said, well, how many water quality complaints do we get before and after? And I would say, how long before and how long after? And those kind of difficult questions to answer. So it took me a while thinking about this, but what I came up with was this. And so we've got parameters on a zone basis and a length of time basis. And so what you can, so this was kind of like the money shot for the general manager. Before pigging, in the 2 to 4 super zone for 4 months before and after, we had almost 29, 30 complaints in it. For the 4 months after we stopped pigging, we only had 10 for a reduction at 65. It was beautiful. And we kind of recognized, so down here, for some of the engineering guys, they want to say, well, how frequently did we kick things up? And we knew we were going to cause some problems when we sent the pigs through the mains. So down here you can kind of see what we expected is it was really a big spike during the actual pigging. But what you can kind of see is that there's a big change as you modify by zone and by time frame. So you change your length of time in between before and after pigging, and you see a lot different picture. Come on, Tableau, you spinning there? Here he comes.
So all the complaints came during pigging.
The vast majority came during pigging. And, there was a big effort to tell people, look, we're going to do this. You're going to lose water. Here's how to clear your system. But even still, we got a lot of calls. And so, what we've also found is that there's big differences on a zone-by-zone basis. Here, it looks like we've actually got a little bit worse, although our absolute numbers are really pretty low there, 3. So, I kind of turn that over to engineering. Those are the guys that are going to figure out what's happening as far as pushing water from zone to zone. But this was a really good use of the spatial component and parameters to answer a question that seemingly should be, at the outside, are we helping? It seems like an easy question, but as soon as you started going into some of the details, it's actually kind of difficult to figure out.
Oh, can I just interject? When he said gunk, it's not really gunk. It's basically sediment from the sand, because we have a limestone base we're drawing water from, and the 2 wells in the area do suck up a lot of, there's I guess some iron oxide deposits down there, and so we're getting some red water into it. And you can only filter so much of that out, so it's not like we're shipping gunk out to our customers. It's drinkable, but it's not pretty.
I intentionally left some of the pictures of the water out of this presentation.
But people will have complained their clothes get stained when they're washing them, which is the opposite of what we want.
Right. Exactly the opposite. Sure. Yes. So here's something I built for the gas guys, and. For commercial gas accounts, it's mandated that a human touch every one of those service points, I think, every 3 years. And so what they wanted to have an understanding of is, where are my places where I need to send my guys? Where are we getting ready to come out of compliance? So what I did was I put a map of every service point that has gas and was a commercial account, and then colored based on whether or not we've got something in the field on it already, or how long it has been since I've detected a service order for that specific service point. So we're doing pretty good in the green, but you can see you've got some reds here. About almost 4% of our things are not there. So this was another opportunity where this map is great, but what I really need to do is help the guys out as far as creating work and reducing keystrokes. So what you can do is, now let's go send somebody out here. You highlight on those. Now if I click that create work orders, I'm sending an HTTP GET with all the service point identifiers to our web server. I've got something over there that understands how, oh, look, I got 10 identifiers, go look up the address, and saying create work orders for them in a particular bucket. So if I were to hit that button tomorrow when Keith came in and his pending creation from CIS or from GIS button, or queue, he'd have, 3 new work orders at that address. And he wouldn't have to go and look up service point 1635789 at 942 Evergreen Terrace. All that kind of stuff would be done for him. So, this was another example of us trying to not just stay within Tableau, but take what we could do in Tableau and send it out to someplace else that was functional.
Is that the Simpsons address?
Yes, I like that you got that. It's my go-to address anytime I need an example. So this is an example of data that came out of the SCADA system, and it's terrible. So what you can see is that, every morning between 2 and it's supposed to be 6 a.m., but 7, it generates an Excel file. And what this tells us is how many hours particular pumps ran at lift stations. So we've got stations all over town that use or they go against gravity to pump sewage up so that we can send it down to the treatment plant down to the one end of town. And what was happening was every morning the field technicians responsible for maintaining these lift stations would come up and open up one of these spreadsheets to try to look to see if there's some kind of pattern from what happened yesterday or last week. And clearly it's just not really a good way to view data over time or even data at all. So we wrote a process to wake up every morning and go start poking around in this directory until it found a file and bring it into a database. And what we came up for the guys with was this. And so what you can do is you can decide, what lift station do you want to look at and what's your time range that you're interested in. And I chose this one because it's really nice. So up here, you've got pumps 1 and 2, and most of the stations have 2 pumps. There's a few with 4 pumps, which is why we have this guy down here. But clearly something started happening on the 30th of August with pump 1 just started not running. Pump 2 kept trying to catch up to keep everything going. Eventually they got out there. I don't know what they did, and they reversed it, and then they eventually fixed whatever the problem was. But when you see something like what happened here, it's just clear as day. You don't have to remember, oh, that's right, yesterday pump 1 was running whatever it was running. And so down here what we can see is the number of gallons pumped and if there was any rainfall. And this is one of the first visualizations we built from them, and we had an earlier build of it. And what we used to see all the time was, and here you can see a little bit, you could see some rain, and then you'd see an increase in the pumps running. And what that really meant was you had water intruding into your sewer system, which isn't good because you're paying to treat it and you're paying to pump it around. We've seen a big reduction in how frequently that occurs since we started this program. This particular dashboard has probably been in place for 4 years. It was one of the first ones that I built in Tableau. And then finally down here you can kind of see pump stops, which the guys asked me for about 3 months ago. And you can kind of see, right? Pump 1 just stopped running, and here we can see just no starts for pump 1. When I first built this visualization, a lot of the field guys were very skeptical as to its use, and I got a call one day and they're like, hey, can you backtrack that visualization to go back to this one particular time frame? And the original build that I had just only showed a static 30 days, and it took me a litlittle while to do, and I did, and sure enough it showed that both pumps on this thing just puked out on exactly the day they asked me to. And I was thinking, well, what's going on? He said, well, the field guys didn't believe your system was any good, and we dumped 250,000 gallons of sewage into a holding pond in a subdivision. So subsequent to that, if this thing does not refresh every day, I have a phone call, I have a voicemail when I walk in the office because it's been made clear to the guys that this will be looked at, and there's going to be problems. If it isn't looked at, then there's some kind of issue, because those are the calls you don't want to get. So that's kind of like our presentation. I went ahead and took a look at a lot of our most commonly used dashboards in our server implementation. And what you can kind of see is, what we were trying to get to is management has some, the dispatchers have some, the analysts have some, and the field workers have some, and it goes across the utilities. We're the underground utility, but we've got visualizations for electric and solid waste, as well as natural gas, water, and stormwater. Our future plans involve a real-time KPI dashboard of the dashboards for the treatment data, increasing our coupling to external applications. I attended a really nice advanced spatial analytics talk today that I'd like to try to introduce, and trying to get a handle at going directly into our SCADA information. I'm Brian Scott. This is David Carnes. Please fill out the feedback on your app for your thing if you would like. I was told to put this on there. It's a great idea. And if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to take them. But
Yeah.
oh, you got one more thing?
Oh, what's the code that they need to get the
Bridget
credit?
knows the code. I think I somehow failed my presentation responsibilities by not knowing a code or something.
Okay, so are there any people in the game, playing the game?
Oh.
I'm ballet 90. You want, you don't want to put a bad code in because you get
Okay.
You know, that guy who was so big on the code left in the middle. We should jerk his code off there. He should not get points for that.
Do you have contact information in here?
Yeah. It's one guy.
Ready for questions?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Mark.
So, the survey, so all the screens up there were Tableau screens, right?
Yes.
When you did the survey, does Tableau have a survey built
Oh.
into it?
Well, what I did was I took a screenshot of the survey tool and brought it in. So I wanted to try to use the story points and not go back between Tableau and
That's fine.
other
So
things.
I just want to know, how does the survey, what do you use for a survey tool?
We used a tool called Lime Survey. It's an open source PHP MySQL. It'll run on Apache WAMP stack. It's really good at creating surveys on the fly. It has a lot of options. The only real failing is at analysis time, it can take you a little while to write your views to get your data. I mean, they had to make some choices to let somebody make a survey between 10 and 1,000 questions, but the upshot is you have a bunch of columns named 7727X55CABL.
So it's Lime?
Yeah,
L-I-M-E?
LIME.
Like key lime?
Yeah, exactly right.
How many technicians did you say you have?
Field technicians or?
Like people actually entering in that survey stuff?
As far as, okay, so the way that the mobile application was written to handle that is there's certain resolution codes that indicate that there was an interaction with the customer. So if we said we lit your pilot, that means we got into your house, which means we talked to you. There's some seasonality there. So when all the students come in and everybody needs to have their pilot light lit, you get a big spike. I'm sure that come November, when the first time somebody actually wants to turn their gas back on, you're going to get a spike. We're getting about 50 responses a month, and that's about a 5 to 7% response rate.
Were you asking about the response rate, or?
I was saying, how many people do you have in the field?
We've got about 200 people in the field, but not all of them are gas technicians. So across the organization, we've got about 200 field employees, and then we probably support another 50 in other organizations between solid waste and UBCS.
So, have you given any thought about using Tableau's forecasting capabilities to kind of perhaps do preventive maintenance and figure out what pump is most likely going to fail?
I was told to repeat the question. The question is, have we thought about using any of the predictive capacities of Tableau? And I haven't thought about that. That's a great idea. There are some specific areas in the treatment plant that we haven't really broken into inside the fence, and they've got some really good tools already in that regard. I have been asked to take a look at lift station runtimes and electric consumption at a pump level to try to determine if there are specific pumps that are causing us problems at electricity time. I haven't gotten there, though. That's a good idea. I should put that on my 2015 list.
Well,
yes.
okay.
Is Tallahassee using Tableau in any other areas, like citizen engagement or anything like that?
We're kind of a separate technical group from the primary technical group, and I've been trying to sell the tool to other areas. The answer is no, and I'm extremely confused by it. I kind of thought the tool sold itself, and I continue to fail to convince other people of its beauty. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Brian, I do love that you're using Tableau to sell Tableau to the rest of your department.
Go ahead, Nate.
Can you talk a little bit more about the acceptance of the dashboards across? I'm from a utility from New Jersey, and most management are out in the field you ever gotten the pushback on it's a little bit too much art? And have you had that experience? Or?
We haven't had that experience, and I think part of the issue there might be that our general manager in particular, he's got a big design mind. Like he redid the conference room with giant sunflowers and these color palettes that he selected himself. And in fact, what happened for me is I was getting beat up for a while if, every time year 2012 wasn't yellow and 2013 wasn't blue, if I switched year colors at I had this huge thing, and he really nailed me on design time. So I haven't gotten that in particular.
Well, I can kind of answer that. Been dealing with some of the financial information as far as overtime costs and trying to project that out, and also then they have operations budgets and capital improvement budgets, and which are kind of separate. So they're really used to seeing their sheets of columns and lines of data. So I actually duplicated duplicated Excel inside Tableau, which is kind of weird. But I did prettify it, so I managed, did things I didn't have before with nice little subgroups and color coded and all that. And that's kind of put that on. Actually, I used Storyboard. First time I used the story points. I used that to convey financial information. And I know I was losing real estate, but I was able to put more text instead of in the tab, or text up there in the box of the story point. So I did lose some real estate, but I did use, I really like a bullet graph. And that's a really good way for me to show, okay, here's your budget. Here's the black line is the budget. Then you got 60-80%. Here's where you are currently cumulative with all the different department IDs and project codes and all the different things that we want to slice and dice in the different ways they wanted. But then it's a straight line, no tricky predictive analysis, because I was talking to them and they're like, well, things are kind of seasonal and back and forth. So ultimately, I just take how much they've spent so far, divide it by the number of days in this fiscal year, and then divide it by 365 or 366, depending on what the length of the year is, and then plot that on a secondary axis, going, okay, here's where your budget is, and this rate you'll be here or there, so they can just really quickly just go, oh, here's my burn rate, got it. Now let me go see the details. And so I was able to show, not just give them the details, but kind of give them a little predictive and a little prettify it, a little bit more technical term.
I just kind of want to ask again on the data sharing. Do you own all of the data sources populating these dashboards, or do other city agencies, I'm with New York, and I feel like some of these would have direct implications for the health department. The first responders like to talk about the things that come out of this. So do you have that?
Well, a lot of our data is coming out of our citywide enterprise systems, so the HR and the financials. All our financial data goes into that, and also our customer information system is really, really old PeopleSoft. It's like the company that it's been bought out so many times that there's actually so many versions behind. We can't even really talk to it with the component interface like we're supposed to. But we actually do have access, at least with the customer's information. I can go get day-old data and be able to populate some things back with that. And I can just exploring, playing around. I use Toad, Tools for Oracle Application Developer, so I play around with that a lot. I can't write my views or store procedures in there, but I can just play with it. And then, like I did mention, some of our things are obfuscated, like a HawkWim system. So that's where I'm writing scripts that get the data dictionary, say, okay, give me every table name that's got this in here, this type of column name. Now go select from this table, looking for this value on this date range, sum it up, because we have 50-minute data and hourly data. Excel Sheets dashboard is only showing me the 1 day, so I finally find it and then create that on there.
Well, and speaking to that a little bit, we've started as a development shop, really. So a lot of what we did early on with developing a mobile application was a self-defense mechanism to get around some of the rules of central technology. And I know they had good reasons, and I know everybody hates a cowboy or whatever, but the data that we have that's really good is the data that we controlled on some MySQL servers that we brought up internally, because if we got a request for a change, we can go make that change. We didn't have to fill out a ticket to somebody who's already responsible for 90 Oracle clusters or whatever, and we could just make that change. So, speaking to your question a little bit differently, it's kind of a mix. probably about half of our data that you saw here was from systems that we own, and we can make any kind of change we want to. And the other half is from systems that is owned by other folks, and we can get select on. But even something as simple as getting a view created could take up to 2 weeks. That's when you have the script written and you send it off to somebody. It just takes a while to bubble up through the queue. So it just kind of depends.
Do you ever get follow-up, like, I mean, I'm just picturing, like, there have to be other people in the city who would really love to see this. Do you ever give them just, like, sort of like access to review of your dashboard?
Sure, I've done it repeatedly, and
I really like it.
yeah, sure, it's great. It's nice, Chuck. That's a nice plant. Is it me? I don't know. Is it David? I mean, I generally think that I'm nice enough, but we've experienced significant resistance towards that kind of thing. And part of it might be that we're kind of a little bit removed from central technology, because we've had some meetings and they've said, well, we can do GIS. Well, we could whip something up for you in 15 minutes. And I'm thinking about that dashboard I did for the Northwest piece where I had all those parameters. Like, I don't think this guy's got any clue what I'm doing. So I'm trying to get there, but not making a lot of progress.
He's been asked these questions more than once.
What's
Two quick questions, one specific and one more general. On your infiltration graph that you showed of the rainwater into the stormwater into the sanitary sewer system.
Sure.
You said there was a reduction in that over time, and I know that doesn't just happen. That's a drain-by-drain situation to correct that. I'm curious about how that insight led to the action that reduced the infiltration. If you could just talk about that just a little bit.
Well, it was weird because when we first brought it up, almost every pump station you looked at over time, when there was rain, you would see a spike in run times, like every single one. So I think that the lift station guys were looking at that, and they just formulated an attack plan to go down the way. And we also had, not demonstrated here at the time, we had a system for the sewer valves, which had to be air released in specific sequences. So I think that as they were working down the sewer release valve sequencing, that's when they started to try to locate the areas where there was some kind of infiltration happening. I wasn't really kept up to speed too well at an operational level about what they were trying to do to reduce that, but I can tell you that the frequency with which it happened at the data level just plummeted.
Thank you. And the second question is kind of related to New York. Have you extended any of this data to the public? Have you thought about it? Would you use Tableau Public to do it, a subset of this data? In your situation, you have certainly a need for a controlled environment, but there's also some proportion of the population who would be interested in this data from a public view.
It's been discussed a little bit. I think every time when we start actually talking about public data prices, I think some of my managers might lose a little bit of their interest if we're housing it internally. And it's anytime you've got data like this, it's really scary to expose it out to everybody. So I haven't put a lot of thought into that. I think probably people higher above my pay grade have put some thought into it, and if they tell me to jump, I'll start jumping.
I'm sure your Public Utilities Commission needs some of this information, right? Are they pulling that, or I don't know how you're structured?
As far as, there are some regulatory reports that get run out of this. I had a slide that I pull out here from the water production guys that actually helped them identify a problem in reporting as far as when the auxiliary engine on the wells was run every month. I haven't been approached as far as creating specific reports for the regulatory guys as of yet, but David had some of those with the treatment plant data. But as far as interfacing with the actual regulators, they just haven't gotten down to our level. We're letting the operational guys who understand how to talk to them, and then they come to us and say, I need to know these things. Perfect. Are we on time, Bridget?